speak. That you would climb up one of these mountains and grab rocks from the ground and throw them at heaven and say, I will not surrender this wrestling until you touch my life. Until you change me. Until there's something of God on me. So tired of words. Yet words are precious. But without the Spirit of God, how to know Him. Brothers, I have sometimes jokingly said that when a Jehovah's Witness knocks on my door and they say, we're Jehovah's Witnesses, I'll open up the door and say, well, come on in, so am I. And I'll let them talk for about 10 minutes and I'll say, you're not a witness for Jehovah. You are lying about Jehovah. Now, why do I do it that way? Because I heard a man years and years ago said, I will not allow a cult to steal my name from me, my heritage from me. Now, nor will I allow TV preachers and evangelists, many of them heretics, and movements to steal the Holy Spirit from me. I will not be afraid of Him. I will not turn in my heritage or my mantle as a man of God because other people speak falsely with regard to the Spirit of God and His power upon their life. I will not. I have a book here. And in this book is the book of Acts. And I see in that book mighty works of God. It's not the acts of men, it's the acts of God through men. And I see things that apparently Christ saw that His men needed. Do you realize they saw Him resurrected and yet some still doubted? They were still afraid. And it wasn't until the mighty wind of the Spirit of God blew through them, was poured out on them. There's so much wrangling today about the text and we miss the entire meaning of the text. Yes, we have to look at it correctly to defend ourselves and our flocks from those who would interpret it wrongly. But at the same time, do not miss the point. They needed power from on high. They had seen Him die. They had seen Him resurrected. But it wasn't until the Spirit of God was poured out in a Joel, New Testament, New Covenant type way that they were able to stand and bear witness to this Word and to Christ. There is absolutely nothing withheld from God's beloved, from Christ's beloved. There is no spiritual blessing withheld from you. There is no measure of His presence that He will deny you, but you have not because you ask not. Oh dear, what a banquet, what a cornucopia, what a sea of joy in His presence and of power to minister as though you were carried by another. And be very, very careful. Although I do believe I'm saying something you need. Some of you are so worried and will even say when you leave this building, well, he didn't even open up his Bible until the first 15 minutes. Can't you not hear that God is speaking? Biblical things are being told to you at this moment. I am not a great systematic theologian. I know my limitations. I am not a scholar. I will not stand in seminaries, and I so appreciate men who do. If it weren't for them, I don't know where the direction of my life would have gone. I so need brilliant men. I am not one of those, but the one thing I can tell you is that all my life I have been needy, and I have been weak, and I have been slow, and I have been afraid, but it caused me to run to Him. And in running to Him, there is such glory. There is such power. There is such life. You see, it's not just they need correct thinking. For men to even be able to grasp with their mind, it must be a thing of Ezekiel, can these dead bones live? You see, we are to be scholars, but we are to be prophets. We are not to be businessmen and administrators. We are to have the power of the living God upon us. And when we proclaim the word, we are proclaiming words to dead men. And it must be the Spirit of the living God who comes and raises them from the dead. And then when they are raised from the dead, they are yet not mature. They need Christ formed in them. They need to reach the full stature of Christ, and that requires knowledge. Again, our people perish because of a lack of knowledge. But oh my dear God, lift up your pants and show me your knees. Was Paul not an intercessor? Was he not? Oh my dear brother, listen to me. There is nothing impossible in prayer. There is nothing impossible. So many believers with besetting sins in their life, and they think that literally that's the way it's just always going to be. So content with slavery. Instead of going to their knees and crying out to God until they're delivered from that sin. Pastors, we preach and we preach and we preach and we preach and we preach, but where is the demonstration of power? Yes, men are changed through preaching, but have you ever seen men changed through your prayer life? Have you ever silently labeled a few men that you were going to focus your prayer life upon and hit your knees and thought and wrestled until Christ is formed in them and you saw a maturity and a glow and a life that was absolutely unexplainable apart from the power of the living God? Most ministers today have sold their ministry to Fifth Avenue and to marketing and to culturally sensitive business models of church. It's absolutely pathetic, but don't sell your ministry to mere scholarship. You are a man of God. That would suppose that you dwell with Him in secret prayer. Secret prayer. Secret prayer. Is the presence of God a reality in your life? Even that statement set some of you trembling and afraid. Will He go off on us? Is He really not of our camp? Is He a little bit too, given to experience? Again, go back and read those old books of yours. Find those men. Oh, brothers, we are more than administrators. We are more than mere scholars. We are men who dwell in the presence of the Most High. Every conflict in your life, every brokenness in your body has one purpose. It's to send you to your knees. Every conflict, every battle. Today, there's no battle fought in this pulpit. It was fought this morning at 5 o'clock. It's not fought here. It's fought in prayer. It's won in prayer. The thing is done in prayer. The thing is done in prayer. I want you to look for a moment. Let's just go with me to Luke 18. Verse 1. Now he was telling them a parable to show them that at all times they ought to pray and not to lose heart. Do you know, I hear it very common today, even among ministers. They say, well, I don't really have a specific time of prayer. I just kind of pray all the time. I do not believe them. Because I have learned that practicing the presence of God and practicing prayer, it is a learned discipline. It comes from tarrying with your God. What else would you want to do? What other greater privilege has been granted you than to tarry with God? To worship Him. To cry out to Him. To commune with Him. And you say, we are to pray all the time, but how do we learn to practice the presence of God? How do we learn to pray all the time? I submit to you, it is by the discipline of a separated prayer life. Of getting up in the morning, early, before day. And I have come to believe that in fighting this battle of piety, one of the best things for me to do is this: to discover what my flesh most hates and do that first, before I'm weakened or distracted. To get up in the morning, and I'll tell you this, my flesh hates prayer more than Bible study. Because Bible study can actually be used for my glory. I can know more than others. I can speak better than others. If I study well, I'll be able to speak at conferences, but no one will know about my life of prayer. I will gain nothing from men, but I will gain much from God. My flesh hates prayer. Another thing just for you young ministers, we are never to be anxious. It's funny to me that men who believe so much in the sovereignty of God would actually be anxious. But I wake up sometimes in the morning anxious. The devil uses those things as distractions. It may be some imaginary thing causing me anxiety. It may be just a little problem, but it begins to eat at my mind. So the first thing in the morning, what do? Philippians 4. I'm anxious for nothing. So what must I do? Take that anxious thought, whatever it is, and go to God with it immediately. And clear my mind of all anxiety. Now I stand before a sovereign God, and I'm fully convinced of it. And then pray. Pray. Pray for what? Pray for everything. For everything. Everything. Brothers, there is a sense of being carried in preaching, where you almost, it seems as though you don't even know what direction you're being drug into. Now again, not to say we're not to be expositors. We need to be better expositors. I need to be a better expositor. But you can have every T crossed, every I dotted, and there's no power. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen men wax eloquently, and yet your soul was not moved. Nothing was dealt with in regard to your conscience. He taught a parable specifically to let men know that they should always pray. A parable is built around this with one purpose, that you would always pray